What's up, guys? It's Will here from SHADOW ASCENT, signing back in, coming at you with another video today. And I wanted to talk about lust today, a battle that we've all encountered. Everyone, I think, has experienced it. And I actually watched a video yesterday on this topic. Well, it was actually on quantum manifestation by a channel called Sinend. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'll leave the link to the channel down in the description, but they referenced lust in a different light than what I'm accustomed to hearing. You know, whenever I have talked about lust or gone through it, it's always felt like an objectification of women. And in turn, that's sort of how it feels like in life. I'm viewing people as more so as objects, more so as some piece that I can get something from, an immediate satisfaction out of. While that is to an extent the case, it's painted in a light in that video where it's more so a feeling that is unfulfilled within, that, you know, when you're sitting there on your bed at night and you have nothing to do, when you're bored and you watch porn, or you are, you know, looking at Instagram models or whatever, like we've all been there. And when you succumb to those feelings, it's often just this immediate need that is not being met. We all have a deep-rooted desire for sex. If that desire isn't to immediately be met by someone, right, accompanying us, then it is hard, very difficult to not give in to those cravings. I continue to battle a porn addiction. It is by far better than it was when it was at its worst a solid 5 or 6 years ago, but it's still something I succumb to every now and then. And I'm in a relationship now, so the consequences of that are far more severe. I think every time I watch porn, it's kind of a feeling of like going behind my girlfriend's back. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing that? That's not okay. That's not something that is acceptable or should be tolerated. I don't think, you know, porn in itself is awful if it's just something that, you know, you casually watch once in a while. But it is, if you let it become that, it is a drug, and it is a severe drug, right? It's not just something that people can watch and, oh, I can just tune out. Now, people will watch porn and they'll watch it again, and then they'll scroll and watch a few videos, and then they'll get into a certain very taboo subject on porn, you know, and then they'll go farther and they need more and more, and that is literally the exact same components that make up a drug addiction. It's very difficult to get out of that cycle. You don't notice immediately how it affects you. It's not necessarily seen as much at the physical level. You will start to notice the manner in which you view people like objects. You treat people like objects. How can I get an immediate need out of you? Part of this journey is accepting our nature as human beings, that we will forever desire a form of sex. And when we don't desire that, there's usually some form of issue going on. We want it, we crave it. That's just a natural part of our animalistic roots. It's the same need that needs to be satiated as eating. Obviously, you can go without sex and it's like, okay, well, it's not like the same effects or ramifications as if you went 5 weeks without food, but it is still a deep need that we have, and without it, there will be frustrations, there will be irritation. And so that's the difficult balance to it, because we've all been there after we did succumb to these cravings and sitting there with that clarity, that post-nut clarity, and you're just like, what did I just do? Why did I do that? And you have all these negative thoughts and questions about, you know, your reality. I believe for anyone who is in the midst of an addiction to porn or is succumbing to lust frequently, I would say the hardest thing to do is forgive yourself. I, back a few years ago, was attempting hookups. I never actually went along with one of them, but I was considering it, I was going through with it, and this was largely stemming from an addiction with porn. Because of that, I would feel nothing but shame, guilt. I would question my decisions, my actions. I would have a damaged self-image, and as a result, I would be sitting in my car afterwards, my head in hands, and not knowing what to do. But in such an instance, hey man, I forgive myself. That is the hardest thing to do in many cases, but it's the first step. am I going to say that I never will watch porn again? No. I'm going to do everything I can, and there's discipline involved. Obviously, I believe in myself to abstain, but there's also just, it's there. It's an addiction that I experienced in my adolescence, and it's been extremely difficult to mitigate in my adulthood. And I also realized that that's just a natural part of my being to want to have sex, and if it is not immediately at my disposal in the form of my girlfriend, I may go online if I'm sitting in my room bored all alone. But you just can't let it get out of hand. That's the key. And that's what I did in my adolescence. I was watching all sorts of different areas of porn, of, gay porn, trans porn. And to be honest, I think the worst of them all was the compilations of, continuous immediate dopamine, that was completely hindering my perception of what sex and intimacy was. And of course, with the watching gay and trans porn, I was deeply questioning my sexuality. Like, what do I even like? I have no idea. And it took years. It's taken years to really get an idea, to garner some level of notion, or okay, so this is what I like, this is what I enjoy, right? I didn't even want to actually have sex, and I didn't until I was 24. That was more so a choice than anything. I did have opportunities. Like I said, there were hookups that I was going to, but then getting there and being like, no, I'm not doing this, and leaving. That's something that's been very hard to admit to anybody. Like, I've had a hard time reflecting on those, like doing that in this video, but that's a reality that I live. There's been a lot of progress, but it's a continuous battle, just as if any addiction, for someone who's addicted to any substance, it's something it's gonna be a lifelong test, because there will be phases where you go like 2 months without doing anything. You may go a year, you may go 2 years, you may go 5 years, and you think you're over it, you think it's in the past, it's done. But then one little slip up, one little false nostalgic memory pops up in your brain, and you're like, what if I just did it one time? And then that completely spirals into chaos, and you're back to square one. And so you have to be wary of these things and never getting ahead of yourself. I've at times sat here and been like, man, I haven't, watched porn. I've been abstaining for the last 3 months, and I'm doing great. Like, I feel as if I've made so much progress and I'm over this. And while it's good to give yourself that credit, that's the time where I almost let my guard down, and then a couple of nights later, I'm back to it. How does that happen? Why does that? Because I'm giving attention to it. Because I'm noticing, it's been 3 months. Oh, wow. Instead of just kind of continuously going about my day as if, that's just something that I shouldn't be doing, is watching porn. It's very awkward and difficult to fully come to a consensus on this, because we always are going to have the desire. We're always going to have the desire, and many people are going to give in, and everyone's going to make that mistake at some point. But sometimes it isn't as much of a mistake as it is just a human need. I think it's just what it is and how you satisfy that need that ultimately matters. If you have a partner and are in a loving relationship and happy and having great intimacy and doing well in that regard, then that's obviously a beautiful thing. But if you go behind your partner's back and are watching porn consistently, often, it can become more of an issue than you might realize. I do believe that as men specifically, we have an immediate desire to want to fornicate with however many women we can, right? It's hard not to objectify. That's something that every man has done, has just been like, I just want the immediate satisfaction and the hits that comes along with sex. We're naturally wired to want to have sex and spread our seed. And so we have to find a way to express that in moderation, to find a way to tame it. And that's something that takes time to figure out. That's something that I'm trying to figure out myself as well. Especially if you're in a monogamous relationship, you can't just do that. So it is a very double-edged sword. It's something that I'm still, trying to figure out. But in terms of how to defeat lust, I don't think that's really the point. I find that it's better to make peace with it, to make a sort of a treaty with it, right? Become friends with your own lust. Understand it's there, respect the fact that it's present, but you have to at least find ways to tame it and notice the patterns of when you're giving into it. Is it when you are lying in bed at midnight and you're all alone and there's nothing to do? So pick up on your habits and daily routines. I feel like is a good way to get out of that and also to channel that energy, because there's a lot of sexual energy that we have, and channeling it sometimes to something productive like a workout, some artistic hobby like writing, creative hobby, right? Something that, such as that, is going to benefit you a lot more in terms of working around lust. But it's always there. The phone is always going to ring, and sometimes we answer. But we have to also be wary of how far we let it get. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I know it's a very taboo subject, but also an extremely fascinating one, and something that has certainly taken shape in the modern day and age with high-speed internet access to all sorts of sexual fantasies. It's instant gratification, and we need to find a way to delay that. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you as always for tuning in. Will from Shadow Ascent, signing out.